You've heard someone say it. Maybe at a dinner table. Maybe a politician on a screen. Maybe your uncle. Maybe a voice in your own head. The country is $36 trillion in debt. That's insane. Somebody needs to be responsible, tighten the belt, and just pay the thing off. It sounds obviously right. It sounds like adulthood. And you nod, because who could argue? You know what debt feels like. You know the weight of owing. Getting to zero is the dream. A country should want the same thing a person wants: to be free and clear. So here's the question that breaks the whole thing open. What if paying it off completely didn't save the economy, but crashed it? Not would be hard, not would take discipline. Crashed it. On purpose, by accident, the moment you succeeded. Hold that. Because it's happened before, exactly once, and the result should stop you cold. But first you have to unlearn what the debt actually is. You picture the national debt like your debt, a hole. Money you spent that you now have to claw back, and until you do, someone can come take your house. That's a personal loan. And that's the wrong picture entirely. When the government borrows, it doesn't go to a bank. It sells a bond, a treasury. You hand the government your money now, and it hands you back a piece of paper that says, "I will pay you this back, with interest, on a set date, guaranteed." That piece of paper is the national debt. Every dollar of the 36 trillion is a bond somebody is holding. Now, who holds them? Not who you think. The single largest category isn't China. It's Americans and the US government itself. Pension funds, insurance companies, banks, your retirement account, almost certainly. And a huge chunk sits inside the government's own trust funds, like Social Security, which took in more than it paid out for decades and parked the surplus in, you guessed it, Treasury bonds. So the debt isn't just a burden, it's an asset. It's the safest place on earth to store money, and the entire financial system is built on top of it. And here's where it gets stranger. That Treasury bond isn't just an investment someone tucks away. It's the load-bearing wall of global finance. Because it's considered the closest thing to risk-free that exists, it's used everywhere as collateral, the thing you pledge to borrow against. Banks hold treasuries to prove they're safe. Pension funds hold them to stay stable. Two firms lending each other billions overnight use treasuries as the security deposit that makes the loan trustworthy. The whole machine runs on the existence of that safe asset. Now think about what pay off the debt actually means. To pay it all off, the government would have to buy back every single one of those bonds and retire them. Pull the safe asset out of the system. Every pension fund, every bank, every saver holding treasuries for safety would have their safest holding vanish and be handed cash they now have to put somewhere riskier. The floor everyone stands on would be removed in the name of tidying up. And you don't have to imagine how that goes. America did it. In 1835, President Andrew Jackson did the thing your uncle wants. He hated the national debt, called it a moral failing, a national curse. He vetoed spending, and he sold off enormous tracts of government land in the West for cash. And on January 1st, 1835, for the first and only time in its history, the United States paid off its entire national debt. Zero. Debt-free. There was a celebration. A senator stood up and announced it. Historians say there was quite a cheer. The good times lasted about 1 year. Because all that land had been bought on wild speculation, with money borrowed from banks that were themselves running loose. Jackson had killed the national bank. There was no anchor. And when the government dumped its surplus into scattered state banks, it fed a bubble that was already straining. In 1837, it burst. The Panic of 1837, followed by a depression that ran for years. Revenue collapsed, and the debt came roaring straight back because the moment the economy cracked, the government had to borrow again to survive. The one time America got to zero, it was standing on the doorstep of one of the worst downturns in its history. It has never been debt-free since, and most economists will tell you those two facts are not a coincidence. Here's the twist. You've been thinking of the debt as the problem. It isn't. The debt is the thing the problem is hiding behind. A moderate, stable national debt in your own currency isn't a hole you fell into. It's the foundation the whole house is bolted to. The bonds are the safe asset. The safe asset is the collateral. The collateral is what keeps money moving. Rip it out, and you don't get a debt-free paradise. You get a system with nothing solid left to stand on. The goal was never zero. 0 is the danger. The real question, the one that actually matters and that just pay it off lets everyone avoid, isn't how do we get rid of the debt? It's whether the economy is growing faster than the interest on it. That's the number that decides whether the debt is a manageable foundation or a slowly tightening noose. And almost nobody argues about that one, because it doesn't fit on a bumper sticker. If you like having the simple, obvious answer turned over so you can see the machinery underneath it, subscribe. That's the whole point of this channel. So, that thing you heard at the dinner table, 36 trillion in debt, somebody should just pay it off. It still sounds like adulthood. It still sounds responsible. It just happens to describe the one financial move that, the single time this country actually pulled it off, was followed by the floor falling out. The debt isn't the country's mistake. It's the ground the whole thing is standing on. Keep looking closer.